Ambassador Valeth stood at the observation window of Station 07, watching the blue planet spin slowly in the darkness of space. Earth, she had studied it for 3 years now, and she was bored beyond words. The humans down there were fighting again. They were always fighting. Over land, over resources, over ideas that made no sense to her. She turned away from the window and walked back to her desk. Her gray skin reflected the soft lights of the station. Her 4 eyes blinked in sequence as she pulled up the latest report. More wars, more pollution, more signs that humanity would destroy itself before it ever reached the stars. Class 7 developmental primitive, she muttered, reading the official classification. Expected timeline to interstellar capability, 300 to 500 years. The Galactic Concord had been watching Earth for 12,000 years. Generation after generation of observers had sat in this same station, hidden behind the planet's moon, recording every step of human development. And in all that time, humans had done nothing surprising. They discovered fire. They built cities. They killed each other. They built bigger weapons. They killed each other more efficiently. Valeth belonged to the Sirathi Dominion, one of the 12 great powers that made up the Concord. Her people were diplomats and administrators, known for their patience and their ability to bring new species into the galactic fold. But even Sirathi, patience had limits. She was about to close the report when an alarm screamed through the station. Valeth jumped to her feet, her heart racing. In 3 years, she had never heard that alarm. She ran to the main control room, where her small team was already gathered around the central display. "What is happening?" she demanded. Officer Keth, a young Sirathi with nervous eyes, pointed at the screen. "Ambassador, the humans. They have done something impossible." On the display, a small ship was rising from Earth's surface. It was crude and ugly, made of metals that looked barely strong enough to hold together. But as Valeth watched, the ship accelerated beyond the planet's orbit. It passed the moon, it passed Mars, and then it vanished, not destroyed, not hidden. It simply folded space around itself and disappeared, faster than light travel. Valeth whispered. "They have achieved faster than light travel." The room was silent. This was not possible. The humans were supposed to be centuries away from this technology. They were still using primitive rockets. They were still burning fossil fuels. How could they have jumped so far ahead? "Contact Concord High Command," Valeth ordered, her voice shaking slightly. "Tell them the humans have breached the Sol barrier. Integration protocol must begin immediately." The next few weeks were chaos. The human ship, which they called the Icarus Dawn, had reappeared near the edge of the solar system. It was broadcasting a simple message in mathematical code, a greeting to anyone who might be listening. The Concord had no choice but to respond. Valeth was chosen to lead the diplomatic mission. This was supposed to be her moment of glory. First contact with a new species was a rare honor. She would guide the humans into the Concord, teach them their place in the galaxy, and earn recognition among her people. But something about this situation made her uneasy. The integration protocol was simple. New species were brought into the Concord as junior members. They provided labor and resources in exchange for protection and limited technology. Over centuries, they could earn more rights and responsibilities. It was a fair system, Valeth believed. It prevented wars and ensured stability, but it also meant that Earth would lose its independence. Human governments would answer to the Concord. Human resources would be redistributed according to galactic needs. Humans would learn that they were not special, that they were just one of thousands of species trying to survive in a vast and dangerous universe. Valeth traveled to Concord Station, the massive diplomatic hub at the center of known space. Representatives from all 12 great powers had gathered to witness first contact. The Sirathi Dominion was there, of course, along with the militant hegemony, the Vex Collective, the Thornari Republic, and others. Each had their own interests in Earth, their own plans for the new species. The hegemony was the most aggressive. Their representative, a massive creature named Warlord Dreth, made no secret of his intentions. "Humans were warriors," he said. "They would make excellent soldiers for the hegemony's armies. Their planet was rich in metals and water. It would be a valuable addition to his territory." Valeth argued for a gentler approach, but she knew the truth. Once the integration protocol began, Earth would be carved up like meat at a feast. The human delegation arrived 3 days later. Valith watched their ship dock at the station. It was the same crude vessel that had breached the Sol barrier, barely held together with visible welds and patches. The Concord representatives laughed among themselves. These primitives had achieved FTL by accident. Surely, they would be easy to control. The airlock opened, and the humans stepped out. There were 5 of them. 4 were soldiers in simple gray uniforms, carrying weapons that looked almost toy-like compared to hegemony plasma rifles. The 5th was a woman, older than the others, with gray hair and a weathered face. She wore a dark suit and walked with the calm confidence of someone who had seen everything and feared nothing. "I am Director Chen," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I represent the United Earth government." Valith stepped forward, ready to begin the formal greeting. But before she could speak, she noticed something strange. Director Chen was looking around the room, studying the assembled aliens with eyes that showed no surprise, no awe, no fear. Every new species reacted the same way to first contact. They were overwhelmed by the size of the station, the variety of alien life, the technology beyond their imagination. They stumbled over their words. They made mistakes. They showed their weakness. Director Chen showed nothing. "Welcome to Concord Station," Valith said, forcing a smile. "We are honored to meet the representatives of Earth. You have taken your first steps into a larger universe, and we are here to guide you." Chen nodded politely, but her eyes never stopped moving. She was not looking at the aliens with wonder. She was looking at them the way a general looks at a battlefield. "Thank you for receiving us," Chen said. "We have been waiting for this moment for a very long time." Something in her voice made Valith pause. There was weight behind those words, meaning that she could not quite grasp. "Waiting?" Valith asked. Chen smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret, a joke that no one else understood. "We have been waiting," Chen repeated, "for you to finally notice us." The room fell silent. Valith felt a chill run down her spine. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. New species did not speak this way. They did not look at the great powers of the galaxy with calm, knowing eyes. Warlord Dreth stepped forward, his massive form blocking the light. "You speak boldly for a primitive," he growled. "Your planet is weak. Your technology is nothing. You should show respect to your superiors." Chen looked up at him, completely unafraid. She was smaller than his arm, fragile and soft, and yet she stood before him like an equal. "We will show respect," she said quietly, "when we see something worthy of respect." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Valith wanted to step between them, to calm the situation, but she could not move. She could only watch as Director Chen turned away from the furious warlord and addressed the entire assembly. "You see us as children," Chen said, "as primitives who stumbled into space by accident. But you are wrong. You have been wrong about us for a very long time." She looked directly at Valith, and in that moment, the ambassador saw something in those human eyes that she had never seen before in any species. Not fear, not hope, not even defiance. It was patience. Ancient, endless patience. The patience of a predator that had been waiting in the shadows for 10,000 years. "Let us begin," Director Chen said. The integration protocol was supposed to take 30 days. It had been 90 days now, and nothing was going according to plan. Intelligence Director Korax sat in his private office aboard the hegemony warship Devastation, reviewing reports that made no sense. He was a creature of logic and order, with sharp black eyes and a mind that could find patterns in any chaos. But the humans were breaking every pattern he knew. Their technology was wrong. Korax pulled up the analysis of the human FTL drive for the 100th time. His best scientists had studied it for weeks. They had scanned it, measured it, taken it apart molecule by molecule, and they still could not understand how it worked. "The principles are unknown," the lead scientist had reported, his voice trembling. "The power source operates on physics we have never seen. The materials include alloys that should not exist in this universe. Director, we cannot reverse engineer this technology because we cannot even understand what we are looking at." This was impossible. The hegemony had stolen technology from 100 species. They had always been able to understand it, copy it, improve it. But the human drive was beyond them. It was like finding a Stone Age tribe with weapons made of pure energy. And it was not just the FTL drive. Human soldiers had been observed during training exercises on Concord Station. They moved too fast. Their reflexes exceeded the biological limits of any known species. When hegemony warriors challenged them to friendly combat, the humans won every time, not through strength or size, but through speed and precision that seemed almost mechanical. Human diplomats knew things they should not know. They spoke of galactic history with casual familiarity, mentioning events that had happened thousands of years before their species supposedly achieved space travel. When questioned, they smiled and changed the subject. And Director Chen, that woman haunted Corax's thoughts. She negotiated with the skill of an ancient master, turning every Concord demand back on itself. She gave nothing away, while learning everything. She treated the great powers of the galaxy like children playing games they did not understand. Something was very wrong with humanity. Corax ordered a deep investigation into Earth's history. Every record, every transmission, every piece of data the Concord had collected over 12,000 years of observation. He assigned his best analysts to find the truth. What they found disturbed him more than anything else. The records are too clean, his lead analyst reported. Human history follows a perfect pattern of development. Agriculture to cities to industry to space travel. Every step happens exactly when expected. There are no anomalies, no strange discoveries, no unexplained jumps. That should be good, Corax said slowly. No, Director. That should be impossible. The analyst's voice was shaking. Every species has anomalies. Every civilization has mysteries in its past, technologies that appeared too early, knowledge that came from nowhere. But human history is perfect. Too perfect. It looks like it was designed to match exactly what we expected to see. Corax felt cold. You are saying their history is fake? I am saying someone wanted us to believe they were primitives. Someone with the skill to fool 12,000 years of Concord observation. That night, Corax made a decision. He would go to Earth himself. He would find the truth, no matter what it cost. But he was not the only one asking questions. Ambassador Valeth had spent the last 3 months trying to understand the humans. She had failed as badly as everyone else. But unlike Corax, she had made a friend. Marcus Webb was a human engineer assigned to the diplomatic team. He was young, friendly, and seemed genuinely curious about alien species. Valeth had found herself drawn to his easy manner and quick laugh. He answered her questions about human culture, taught her human games, and listened patiently when she talked about her home world. But sometimes, when he thought she was not watching, his eyes would go distant, and he would say things that made no sense. Why did your people hide for so long? Valeth asked him one evening, as they sat together in the station's garden dome. Marcus looked at her sharply. Hide? We did not hide. We just developed, slowly. But your FTL drive, your materials technology, these things do not match your level of development. It is like you were primitive in every way except the ones that mattered. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Outside the dome, stars burned against the black emptiness of space. Do you know why humans fear the dark? He asked finally. Valeth shook her head. Because long ago, before we had fire, before we had weapons, we learned that things hide in the dark. Predators, dangers, things that wanted to eat us. He paused. We learned that sometimes, the only way to survive is to hide too, to be small and quiet, so the predators do not notice you. But you are not small and quiet anymore, Valeth said. You have reached the stars. The galaxy is big, Marcus said softly. And the galaxy is loud. Every civilization broadcasts its presence. Radio waves, energy signatures, FTL trails. You light up the darkness like fires, showing everything where you are. He turned to look at her, and something in his eyes made Valeth's heart skip. We learned long ago, he said, that it is safer to be invisible. Learned from who? From what? Marcus stood up abruptly. I have said too much. Forget I spoke. He walked away, leaving Valeth alone with her questions. But she could not forget. His words echoed in her mind. Things hide in the dark. It is safer to be invisible. What did humans know that the rest of the galaxy did not? 3 days later, Corax's investigation made a breakthrough. His analysts had discovered something buried in the oldest Concord records. From the very first years of observation, Earth's electromagnetic signature had been wrong. It was too weak, too quiet, as if something was dampening the planet's emissions. They traced the dampening field to its source. It was not natural. It was not human technology. At least not modern human technology. It was a network of satellites in orbit around Earth, hidden behind advanced cloaking fields, silently absorbing every signal that might escape into space. The satellites were 12,000 years old. Someone had been hiding humanity from the galaxy since before the Concorde existed. Korax stared at the data, his mind racing. The satellites used materials his scientists could not identify. The cloaking technology was beyond anything the hegemony possessed. Whoever had built them had capabilities that made the Conquered look like children playing with toys, and they had used those capabilities to make one species, on one small planet, completely invisible to the rest of the universe. "What are you?" Korax whispered, looking at the distant image of Earth. "What are you really?" He began planning his mission. He would take a covert team to Earth. He would find answers. He would uncover humanity's secret, and he would use it to make the hegemony the greatest power in the galaxy. He did not know that his investigation had already been noticed. In a hidden room deep beneath Earth's surface, ancient machines hummed to life for the first time in 10,000 years. Screens flickered on, showing the hegemony ships in orbit, showing Korax's face, showing every move the alien made. And in the darkness, a voice spoke. "They are looking," another voice answered. "Let them look. Let them find what we want them to find. And if they find too much," there was a pause. Then, quietly, "Then it will be time to stop hiding." The machines continued their silent watch, waiting for the moment that had been planned for longer than the Galactic Concorde had existed. The moment when humanity would finally show the galaxy what it really was. That moment was coming soon. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, shaking violently as ice and wind battered its hull. Intelligence Director Korax gripped his seat and watched the white landscape below grow larger. Antarctica, the frozen bottom of the world, where humans rarely went, and satellites found it hard to see. His team consisted of 12 of the hegemony's best operatives. They were armed with weapons that could level cities and trained in techniques that had conquered 100 worlds. Whatever secrets Earth was hiding, they would find them. The anomaly had been detected 3 days ago. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, sensors had picked up an energy signature that should not exist. It was faint, almost invisible, but it matched the technology in the orbital satellites. Whatever was hidden down there had been hidden for a very long time. The shuttle landed on a frozen plain. Korax led his team through the howling wind, following the signal toward a mountain range that cut across the horizon like broken teeth. The cold did not bother him. His species had evolved on a world of ice and stone, but something else bothered him. A feeling he could not name. A sense that he was walking into a trap. They found the entrance hidden behind a wall of ice. It looked natural at first, just another frozen cliff. But when Korax touched it, his hand passed through the surface like it was made of smoke. A hologram. A perfect illusion hiding something behind it. He stepped through and found himself in a corridor of black metal. The walls were smooth and warm, untouched by the ice that should have crushed them over thousands of years. Soft lights flickered on as he moved forward, as if the structure was waking up after a long sleep. "Director," one of his operatives whispered, "this technology, I have never seen anything like it." Neither had Korax. The corridor led deeper underground, past sealed doors and dark chambers. The architecture was beautiful in a way he could not describe. Flowing and organic. Nothing like the crude buildings humans made on the surface. This was not the work of primitives. This was the work of a civilization that had mastered the universe. They reached a massive chamber at the heart of the structure. Korax stopped in the doorway, unable to move, unable to breathe. The room was filled with light. Thousands of holographic displays floated in the air, showing star maps and technical diagrams and images of worlds he had never seen. Machines lined the walls, humming with power that made his teeth ache. And at the center of it all, a pillar of crystal rose from the floor to the ceiling, pulsing with energy that felt almost alive. This was not a building. This was an archive, a library of knowledge beyond anything the Concorde had ever imagined. Korax walked forward slowly, his eyes moving from display to display. He saw star maps that covered the entire galaxy, with millions of worlds marked and labeled. He saw technical designs for ships that made hegemony warships look like children's toys. He saw medical technology that could rewrite DNA, weapons that could destroy suns, devices that could fold space itself. And he saw history. The displays told a A story that began before the Concord existed, before the current species of the galaxy had evolved, before the stars themselves had settled into their current positions. The story of the first species. 12,000 years ago, there had been a great civilization spanning the galaxy. They had built wonders beyond imagination. They had conquered death and distance. They had thought themselves gods. They had been wrong. Korax found a display that showed images of the enemy. He stared at it for a long time, trying to understand what he was seeing. It was darkness, pure, empty darkness, but darkness that moved, darkness that consumed. It flowed through space like a living thing, swallowing stars and worlds and everything in its path. The hollow. The archive explained what the hollow was. It came from beyond the galaxy, from the void between stars where nothing lived. It was not truly alive, not in any way Korax understood. It was more like a force, a hunger given form. It fed on energy, on technology, on the signals that civilizations broadcast into space. Every radio wave, every FTL trail, every power signature was a beacon calling the hollow home. The first species had fought the hollow. They had built weapons and defenses beyond anything Korax could comprehend. And they had lost. World after world had fallen. Species after species had been consumed. The galaxy had burned. In the end, only one choice remained. The survivors had done something unthinkable. They had destroyed their own civilization. They had dismantled their technology, erased their knowledge, and hidden themselves on primitive worlds where they would not be detected. They had chosen to forget what they were, to become less than they had been, to survive by becoming invisible. They had become humans. Korax sank to his knees, the truth crushing him like a physical weight. Humanity was not a young species. They were the oldest species in the galaxy. They were the survivors of the first civilization, the children of the gods who had once ruled everything, and they had hidden themselves for 12,000 years, waiting for the hollow to pass. He understood now. The crude technology, the primitive wars, the slow development that had fooled the Concord for so long. It was all deliberate. Every step of human history had been carefully planned to make them look weak, look harmless, look like exactly what the galaxy expected to see. A warning flashed on one of the displays. Korax read it, and his blood went cold. The devourers follow the signal. Silence is survival. The hollow was still out there. It had passed through the galaxy and moved on. But it was not gone. It was waiting in the dark spaces between stars, sleeping, listening for the signals that would wake it again. And the Concord had been broadcasting those signals for 10,000 years. Korax thought of the massive power signatures of Concord ships. He thought of the FTL trails that crisscrossed the galaxy. He thought of the energy that poured from a million worlds, screaming into the void like a dinner bell. The Concord had been calling the hollow back. Every day, every year, every century, they had been making the signal louder, and now Korax was here, poking at secrets that were meant to stay buried. "Director!" One of his operatives was shouting. "Someone is coming." Korax turned to see figures emerging from the shadows of the archive. They were human, but not like any humans he had seen on the surface. They wore black armor that seemed to absorb light. They carried weapons that hummed with power beyond anything in the hegemony arsenal. At their head was a woman he recognized. "Director Chen, you found the archive," she said calmly. "Faster than we expected. Your people are persistent." Korax reached for his weapon, but Chen raised her hand. "Do not. You cannot win this fight, and we need you alive." She stepped closer, her eyes ancient and sad. "You have seen the truth now. You know what we are. You know what is coming. The hollow." Korax whispered. "It is still out there. It never left. It is sleeping, waiting, listening, and thanks to the Concord, it is starting to wake up." Chen looked at the displays around them, at the history of her people laid out in light and shadow. "We hoped we would have more time. We hoped you would stay quiet, stay hidden, give us centuries to prepare." "Prepare for what?" Chen met his eyes. And in that moment, Korax saw the weight of 12,000 years of patience, of sacrifice, of waiting. "For war," she said. "The war we ran from once. The war we always knew would come again." She turned toward the archive's exit. "Come, Director. It is time for the galaxy to learn the truth. It is time for humanity to stop hiding." Korax followed her, his mind reeling. Everything he knew, everything the Concord believed, was wrong. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, something ancient and hungry was beginning to stir. The message Korax sent back to the hegemony was supposed to be secret. It was encrypted with the highest military codes, transmitted through channels that only the most trusted officers could access. It described the archive, the technology, the truth about humanity's past. It was intercepted within hours. Warlord Dreth sat in his command throne aboard the Devastation, reading the report for the 5th time. His massive hands trembled, not with fear, but with excitement. The technology in that archive was beyond anything in the galaxy. Weapons that could destroy suns, ships that could cross the universe, power beyond imagination, and it was sitting on a primitive world, guarded by a species that had chosen to forget how to fight. Dreth smiled, showing teeth like broken stones. The other hegemony commanders had gathered around him, their eyes bright with greed. They all saw the same thing he did. Earth was not just a planet to be absorbed into the conquered. It was the greatest prize in galactic history. We take it, Dreth said simply. We take the archive, we take the technology, and we become the masters of the galaxy. But the humans, one commander said carefully. Korax says they are dangerous. They are the survivors of the first species, survivors who ran away. Dreth stood, his armor creaking. Survivors who hid like cowards for 12,000 years. They have forgotten how to be warriors. We have not. He turned to his fleet commanders. Prepare all ships. We attack Earth in 6 hours. The warning came to Director Chen while she was still in the archive with Korax. A young officer rushed in, his face pale with fear. Director, hegemony ships are entering the solar system. 47 warships. They are heading for Earth. Chen closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were hard as stone. Fools, she said quietly. We gave them the truth, and they responded with violence. She turned to Korax. Your warlord has made a terrible mistake. Korax shook his head. You do not understand. 47 hegemony warships are the most powerful force in the galaxy. Your planet has no military. Your technology, whatever it once was, has been dormant for 10,000 years. You cannot win this fight. Chen smiled, and it was the same strange smile she had worn at their first meeting. The smile of someone who knew a secret. Come with me, she said. Let me show you what 10,000 years of preparation looks like. She led him through hidden tunnels, past sealed doors that opened at her touch, into a command center buried deep beneath the Antarctic ice. Screens covered every wall, showing views of Earth from orbit, from the surface, from angles Korax could not understand. And in the center of the room, a single chair sat before a console of crystal and light. This is the heart of our planetary defense grid, Chen explained. Built by our ancestors, maintained in secret through all the centuries of hiding. Every satellite in orbit, every weapon hidden beneath the surface, every shield generator buried in mountains and oceans. All connected, all waiting. You said you chose to forget, Korax said. You said humanity dismantled its civilization. We dismantled what could be seen. Chen sat in the chair, her hands moving over the controls. But we never forgot how to fight. We never forgot what was coming. Every generation, a few of us were chosen to remember, to maintain, to prepare. She looked at him, and her eyes held 10,000 years of sacrifice. We gave up our glory, our power, our place in the stars, all so that when the darkness came again, we would be ready. Alarms began to sound. The hegemony fleet had entered weapons range. Director, an officer called out. The Devastation is hailing us. Warlord Dreth demands our immediate surrender. Chen pressed a button on her console. Dreth's face appeared on the main screen, massive and arrogant. Humans, he growled. You have one chance. Give us the archive, give us your technology, and I will allow some of you to live as slaves. Refuse, and I will burn your planet to ash. Chen stood slowly. Around her, officers were looking at the screens with calm faces. None of them seemed afraid. None of them seemed surprised. Warlord Dreth, she said, I am going to offer you the same chance. Turn your fleet around. Leave this system. Never return. Do this, and we will not destroy you. Dreth laughed. It was an ugly sound, full of contempt. Destroy us? With what? You have no ships, no weapons, no army. You are primitives playing at war. We were never primitives. Chen said quietly. We were sleeping, and you have just woken us up. She pressed a single button. The battle lasted 11 minutes. From hidden positions all around Earth, satellites that had slept for centuries came alive. They were small, barely visible against the blackness of space, but they contained weapons that the hegemony could not even understand. Beams of pure energy cut through hegemony shields like they were made of paper. Ships that had conquered 100 worlds broke apart in seconds, their crews dead before they could scream. The devastation, the pride of the hegemony fleet, was hit by 17 beams simultaneously. It exploded in a flash of light that could be seen from Earth's surface. Warlord Dreth died without ever understanding what had killed him. When it was over, 47 warships had become 47 clouds of debris. Not a single human life had been lost. Korax stood in the command center, watching the destruction he had brought upon his people. His legs would not support him. He fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. You could have stopped this, he whispered. You could have shown us your power before they attacked. Why did you let them die? Chen looked at him, and for the first time, he saw sorrow in her eyes. Real sorrow, deep and ancient, because we needed the galaxy to see. We needed them to understand what we are, and we needed. She stopped. Alarms were screaming again, different alarms, louder and more urgent than before. Director, an officer said, his voice shaking. The battle, the energy signature. It was. I know. Chen's face had gone pale. It was too loud, too bright. We tried to contain it, but 47 ships releasing their reactors at once. She turned to the main screen. A new display had appeared, showing something Korax did not understand at first. A map of the galaxy, with a single red dot pulsing at its edge. No, not at its edge, beyond its edge. In the darkness between galaxies where nothing lived, the red dot was moving. The hollow, Chen said softly. It heard us. Korax stared at the screen. The red dot was growing, spreading, consuming the darkness around it as it moved toward the galaxy. How long? He asked. 3 years. Maybe less. Chen turned away from the screen, her shoulders straight, her face calm. The war is coming, Director. The war we ran from 12,000 years ago. The war that nearly destroyed all life in the galaxy. She walked past him toward the exit, then stopped and looked back. But this time will be different. This time, we are not alone. This time, we will make the galaxy understand what is coming. And this time, she smiled, but there was no joy in it. Only determination, only the weight of a responsibility that had been carried for 100 centuries. This time, humanity will not run. Korax watched her go, his mind filled with images of the hollow, of the darkness that consumed stars. The greatest power in the galaxy had just been destroyed in 11 minutes, and it was nothing, less than nothing, compared to what was coming. The signal had been sent. The hollow was awake, and the galaxy had 3 years to prepare for the end of everything. The Galactic Concord was falling apart. News of the hegemony's destruction had spread across 1,000 worlds in a matter of hours. 47 warships, the most feared fleet in known space, wiped out in 11 minutes by a species that everyone had believed was primitive. Fear spread like fire. Panic gripped governments that had ruled for millennia. Ambassador Valeth stood in the great chamber of Concord Station, watching representatives from 100 species scream at each other. Some demanded immediate war against Earth. Others called for surrender. A few sat in stunned silence, unable to process what had happened. And then Director Chen walked in. The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned toward the human woman who had destroyed the hegemony without losing a single soldier. She walked to the center of the room, alone, unarmed, and faced the assembled powers of the galaxy. You are afraid, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the massive chamber. You should be, but not of us. She raised her hand, and holographic displays appeared in the air around her. Star maps, sensor readings, images that made no sense to most of the watching aliens. 3 days ago, our battle against the hegemony sent an energy signature into deep space. That signature was detected by something that has been sleeping in the void between galaxies for 12,000 years. She paused, letting her words sink in. The hollow is awake. It is coming, and when it arrives, it will consume everything in its path. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions. demanded explanations, accused Chen of lying. She stood calmly in the center of the storm, waiting for the noise to die down. "You do not believe me," she said finally. "You think this is a trick, a way for humanity to seize power. So let me tell you a story. Let me tell you who we really are." For the next hour, she told them everything. The first species, the civilization that had spanned the galaxy before any of their ancestors had evolved, the war against the Hollow, the defeat, the desperate choice to hide. She told them how humanity had sacrificed its own glory, its own identity, to give life a second chance. "We could have rebuilt," Chen said. "We had the knowledge, the technology, the power. But every signal we sent, every ship we flew, every city we built, would have called the Hollow back. So we chose silence. We chose to become primitive. We chose to watch, generation after generation, as new species rose from the ashes of our civilization, never knowing what slept beneath their feet." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings from 100 different worlds. "We watched you build the Concord. We watched you make the same mistakes we made, broadcasting your presence into the void, lighting fires that would draw the darkness back. And we waited, hoping we would have time to prepare before the signal became too loud." "Why did you not warn us?" someone shouted. "Would you have believed us? Would you have stopped? Would you have dismantled your civilizations, silenced your ships, gone dark like we did?" Chen shook her head. "You would have called us liars or madmen. You would have continued exactly as you were. So we prepared in secret, hoping we could be ready when the time came. And now," Valeth found herself speaking, stepping forward from the crowd. "What happens now?" Chen turned to her. For a moment, something soft appeared in those ancient eyes. Recognition, perhaps even friendship. "Now we fight," Chen said. "But not alone. Not this time." She gestured, and new images appeared. Ships unlike anything the Concord had seen. Weapons of impossible power. Defenses that could shield entire solar systems. For 10,000 years, we have been preparing for this war. We have built weapons in secret. We have trained soldiers in hidden places. We have developed strategies based on everything we learned from our first defeat. She paused. "But we cannot win alone. The Hollow is too vast, too powerful. We need the entire galaxy to stand with us. You want us to fight alongside you?" a Thornari representative demanded. "After you hid the truth from us for millennia? After you watched us blindly call our own destruction?" "Yes." Chen did not flinch. "Because if we do not fight together, we will die alone. Every species, every world, every memory of everything we have ever been. The Hollow does not negotiate. It does not enslave. It consumes. When it is finished, there will be nothing left but darkness." The chamber was quiet now. Fear had replaced anger. The truth was sinking in. Across Earth, something was happening. In cities and villages, in mountains and deserts, ordinary people were waking up. Farmers, teachers, doctors, children. They had lived their whole lives as normal humans, never knowing what they truly were. Now they remembered. The genetic memories that had been locked away for 10,000 years were unlocking. Knowledge flooded their minds. The language of the first species, the principles of their technology, the strategies of their ancient war. Millions of people across the planet were becoming something more than human. They were becoming the inheritors of the first civilization. In hidden shipyards beneath dead moons, lights flickered on for the first time in centuries. Machines that had waited in perfect silence began to hum with power. Ships that had been built before human history began were waking from their long sleep. In the archive beneath Antarctica, the crystal pillar at the center of the chamber pulsed with new energy. The Prometheus Protocol, the final weapon of the first species, was coming online. It had been designed during the last war, a weapon that could hurt the Hollow itself. It had never been finished in time. Now, it would be. Director Chen stood before the Galactic Concord, a representative of a species that had given up everything so that life could continue. "Our ancestors made a choice," she said. "They chose silence, sacrifice, and patience. They gave up their place among the stars so that you could have a chance to exist. Now the silence is broken, and we face the enemy again." She extended her hand toward the assembled aliens. "But this time, we have something our ancestors never had. A galaxy full of species who now know the truth. A galaxy that can choose to stand with us, to fight with us, to face the darkness together. The Thornari representative stepped forward first, then the Vex, then a dozen others, species that had been enemies for centuries, standing side by side for the first time in their history. Valith walked forward last. She took Chen's hand and held it tight. "My people watched you for 12,000 years, she said. "We thought we were studying primitives. We thought we were the advanced ones." She smiled, a small, sad smile. "We were wrong about everything." "You were not wrong about everything," Chen said. "You were curious. You wanted to understand. That is what will save us. Not weapons or technology, but the willingness to look beyond what we think we know." She turned to face the chamber, still holding Valith's hand. "The Hollow will be here in 3 years. We will use that time to prepare every world, every species, every soul in this galaxy. We will teach you what we know. We will share our technology. We will make you ready for the war that is coming." Her voice rose, carrying the weight of 100 centuries of sacrifice. "We hid to protect you. We gave up our glory so that you could live. Now, let us show you how humanity fights. Let us show you what the first species was willing to die for. Let us show you that the darkness is not the end." She raised her hand, and around the chamber, holographic images of the awakening ships appeared, thousands of vessels, rising from their hidden places, preparing for the war that would decide the fate of all life. "The Hollow thinks it has found prey," Director Chen said. "It is wrong. It has found something our ancestors prepared 10,000 years ago." She smiled, and in that smile was the patience of a species that had waited in the shadows for longer than civilizations had existed. Humanity was never the prey. We were never the weak species hiding on a primitive world. We were the trap, and now it is time to close it. In the void between galaxies, the Hollow moved toward the light, hungry and ancient and sure of its victory. It did not know that its meal was waiting for it. It did not know that the children of the first species had finally woken up. It did not know that this time, the war would end differently. This time, humanity would not run. This time, humanity would win.